Hello and welcome again to Who's Your Daddy? I'm Marlon Abrahams and it's really good to have you with us again. Well, tonight we're live again, so if you have something to say about tonight's show or even previous shows, please give me a call on the number that'll be on the screen later. Thanks as always for your comments on Facebook and Twitter and also via email. Please keep them coming. I love hearing from you. And also thanks to the comments from my international viewers who have been watching the show on YouTube. Yeah, that's right. All the shows are now being loaded onto YouTube, so please come and join me on Facebook. All friend requests are accepted, and you can follow the links to YouTube. And also, obviously, don't forget to read my columns, which are in the Saturday Star, obviously every Saturday, on parent24.com and on smn.co.za. Well, on with tonight's show. Now, if you've read my columns today, you'd have noticed that I've taken a bit of a tongue-in-cheek approach to the subject of my columns. And the subject tonight is blended families. Yeah, I've also never heard of the term up until tonight. But apparently, it's the term given to relationships where the couple have to parent their partner's kids from a previous relationship. I know, it's hard enough to make a normal relationship work. I mean, how do you manage discipline, goal setting, responsibility, respect, and all those lovely things with a kid who's not your own? And more importantly, how do you manage this without upsetting the apple cart with your partner? Well, don't look at me. Look at them, my guests, Tyron Dennis and Karen Smook, who are in fact in a blended relationship. And they've not yet killed each other. Now, they'll be sharing their secrets as to how they've managed to remain sane during this time. And also, welcome to Jenny Basson, a Christian counselor who specializes in the issue of blended families. Guys, it's good to have you on board with me tonight.
Thank you.
Tyron, before we get to the scary questions, give us a bit of background in terms of your relationship. How long have you guys been together? How old are the kids? How many kids?
We've been together for 3 years now, just over 3 years.
Yeah.
And Karen has 2 lovely kids, Tanil, 17, and Nathan is 14 years old.
Okay.
And then my daughter, my beautiful daughter, Lisa, she's 15 years old.
Okay.
And yeah.
Yeah. And you said 3 years?
Yeah, just
And
over 3 years, yeah.
Living together now?
Just under 2 months.
Under 2 months.
Yeah.
Karen, how's it been? The 2 months.
It's been hard. It's been tough, but we did discuss it endlessly before we decided this. So it wasn't just a quick decision to just move in together.
Okay, so that's important to note. I think that's a lesson we probably need to take. I mean, you guys have been dating for 3 years. It's not like one day you woke up and said, listen, let's move in together. Was the children's personalities and the fact that you're going to have to parent them together, was that a key issue in terms of the discussion?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we discussed that. Obviously, they've been brought up in 2 different cultures as well, 2 different cities. So to bring that together, and we just considered that we considered them. We did discuss it with them before we made that decision.
Yeah, I'd say it was probably a big decision. Our actual moving together was primarily based on what the kids had to say.
Okay, that's Tyron, tell me a little bit about like what were their comments or what were their concerns in terms of your decision?
Well, from my side, Lisa's been an only child.
Okay.
And her concern was her privacy and her me time, what they
Okay.
call it. And yeah, those are basically the big issues.
Sharing.
And well, obviously sharing, yeah. And but we're going to be working through it slowly. Obviously, I think it's something that we all adapting to. It's a change for all of us. So we'll have to iron out things as we go along, I suppose.
Okay. We'll talk a little bit later on about the solutions. I mean, I'm going to
Okay.
bring in Jenny. She's obviously got a lot of experience in this. But typically, I mean, it's been 2 months now. Have there been sort of any flare-ups, and what would typically be, something that'll set it off or create tension?
Well, for us, it's some like peace and quiet,
Yeah.
some like noise. The last thing
Some
I
are
want.
morning people, some are
Yeah,
night
I'm
people,
not
that
a
kind of
morning
thing. Yeah.
person. Tyron's a morning person,
Yeah.
so that, for the children, they've got totally different personalities. So, yeah, there's been quite a few, but for us, it's been just discussing it with each other, with them, and just listening what they have to say and what our feelings are towards it, and how we're going to confront the situation and discipline.
What I'm hearing is that it seems almost vital that you have to have their buy-in. I mean, you have to make them part of the process. It seems like this would never have happened if you had just sort of made the decision amongst yourselves as the adults in the situation and said, okay, kids, we're now moving together and you guys have just got to fall in.
We decided that because they are teenagers, they're not small, they are molded, they have a mindset of their own already. That's why we decided that they were there first. Before he was there, my children were there. Before I was there, his child was there. And that's what we considered, that they will always be number one in our lives.
Taran, do you think it would have made a difference if the kids were younger?
I don't know, you know. I look at a lot of my friends. I have a lot of experience with friends that's in these blended relationships as well.
Yeah.
And I take a lot of advice and heed from them. So looking at them, I think maybe to a certain point, kids when they are 5, 6, 7 years old, I suppose you can still mold them or bring them up more like your own.
Yeah.
Whereas our kids now, they are that age, they have their personalities, they have their characters ready. So it's just a matter now, I think, of just everybody getting along, everybody clicking, and we're just finding the right clicks. And
let's talk about fundamental issues like, for example, religion or lifestyle or any of those fundamental issues that I don't know whether you guys have fundamental differences along those lines. Was that a factor? Did that come into play at all?
I think that's also just coming along as we're going along. We're just playing it as it comes along. But like I said before, I think it's important to be able to discuss it. We do have different religions. We do have different views. The children have their views. We have our views. That's another thing of having teenagers. They have their view.
Yeah.
It's not my view. It's their own view. So we've been having a lot of discussions about it, you know, and being open, you know, that this is what I believe and this is what you believe, and I respect that. You respect mine.
Now, obviously, you guys are bringing in kids from previous relationships. The parents, the other half of the parent, were they consulted? Did they have anything to say? Did that factor into the equation?
yes, they did.
Yeah?
They did play a big part as well. Obviously, based on the situation, Gordon's past is different to mine, and I tend to make a lot of decisions on my own.
Yeah.
And but it does play a part. You know, if I were to think of something and have it go this way, my daughter would stop me in my tracks and say, "Dad, you know, I need to speak to Mom."
Okay.
You know, sometimes I do tend to forget, which is obviously wrong on my side. But yes, that does play a part.
And what was their input? I mean, were they agreeable from the get-go, or were they concerns? Come on, it sounds like everything went so well. Guys,
Yeah, no.
You know?
Yeah, it was. There was concerns.
Yeah.
Obviously, we also, you know, we're two different races as well. That was an issue from our side, you know, from their father's side. Yeah, and like, I'm their father. That he's not their father. He's not going to be their father. And, you know, so we had to discuss that beforehand. You know, we had a meeting and said to him, you know, that's not going to be the case. It's just that my life is going on now, you know, and as yours has. So, yeah, it wasn't that easy. No, it wasn't easy. Just obviously, he lives around the corner, so it does affect him more. He sees his children more often, so it does affect him. You know, coming in knowing there's another man in the house now and addressing that. You know, and yeah, we've always had the relationship where he actually can come at any time and visit his children, and walk in and sit down. You know, that's no more the case.
There's a new man in the house.
Yeah, he can't just come and visit like he used to.
You know, but from our side, it's the dad and even with my daughter's
but
mom as
it's not
well.
that comfortable feeling anymore, you know. Just sit down, visit with the children. From his side, obviously, he doesn't feel comfortable anymore because it's territory.
Yeah, I think as a man, I can relate to that. I mean, I'd be concerned if some funny-looking guy like Taran from the Cape Flats or his behaviour was suddenly going to be responsible for my kids. So yeah, I can sympathise. But I mean, on a serious note, I think as men and as parents, Taran, I think we can both relate to that. I mean, you wouldn't want Lisa to be exposed to any other guy like you might be involved with your partner down in Cape Town that you don't know about. I mean, that
Sure,
makes sense.
sure. Yeah, no, sure. I obviously take a keen interest in my daughter's whereabouts and hangabouts
And have you actually taken the time to meet Corin's ex and establish a relationship? Was that important? Do you think that just in terms of giving advice to people out there? I mean, should you actually go that extra mile and make?
Yeah, I think that's very important. I think it plays a big part. I did that. I met him on a few occasions, and we like two kids that met at a pub, basically. So for now it's fine. I'm not in there to take over his part or take over his role as daddy. So I tend to respect boundaries as well. So, I think that plays a big part as well. I would imagine.
Now, it's obviously early days. I mean, it's been 2 months that you guys have been together. And I think as human beings, we obviously tend to look out for the problems that are going to come up and the negatives and so on. But how do you deal with, let's say, I'm just going to create a scenario here. And I know, Jenny, you're dying to jump in here, but I'm setting this up, and then we're going to get in the pro thing. So just be patient with me. How do you deal with an issue, and I don't know if this has come up, where maybe your biological parent is less adept at dealing with a particular issue? Let's say they don't really like to talk, or they don't really like to unpack emotional issues, whatever. Now you come into this blended relationship, and the parent's new partner is cool with that. And here you find that the kid can actually sit down and have a deep discussion about something that's really important with the new mommy or the new daddy that they couldn't do with the previous one. I don't know if that's happened, but I'm imagining that might actually put a bit of pressure on you as that parent to, I mean, how do you allow that to happen? Do you go there because you're actually doing something that the other parent is not capable of? Has that dynamic happened?
Yeah, it is hard. That is a very difficult issue because, like we've said before, I'm not going to be the mother. He's not going to be the father. They have that already. It's not like that parent is absent. Those parents are present in their lives. But yes, that is an issue for us.
Yes,
let's
because
give a real example in terms of Lisa. I mean, she's a teenager. Teenage girls need their moms. Her mom's in Cape Town right now. So let's say, I don't know, a feminine issue arises and she needs input, and you're there. What do you do? Do you say, no, go speak to your mom, or do you say, okay, let me help you with
what we've done with that is because that has come up, and I would go to Tyron and say, look, this issue has come up. This is how I feel. You might not see it because you're a man, but from my side, I feel it needs to be addressed. May I address it?
Okay.
May I address it? And he'd say, you know what, that's your department. I don't mind. Do that. Obviously, I have a son, where I'm a mother. I'm never going to be a father. Whereas he needs the father figure as well, permanently in the house. That discipline of a father needs to be there. Whereas Tyron's also said, may I then step in, and that's okay. But I think it is important to communicate if that's okay with the other partner.
Excuse me. Now, it sounds, sounds perfect in theory, but obviously things don't happen like according to schedule. But it sounds also like you guys actually really discuss this in depth, and you are prepared for any eventuality. So when this issue comes up, I mean, I'm trying to think here. I mean, I don't have sons, but if we are supposed to be the role models for our sons. So let's say, hypothetically speaking, he needed to know how to go and take down a deer or something. You can't just say, go and speak to your dad or whatever.
Sure.
Or do you say, you know what, I can take down deer, so let me show you, I can do it better than your dad. You've got to know when to, it becomes kind of tricky, hey? And it's not like you asked for it, you're now in the situation, now you have to deal with it. Hey, Tyron, have you?
Yeah, well, I think, no, I haven't had the experience yet, but I am preparing myself for that one or two little questions. And I'm not going to force it, or I'm not going to try and push it out. So when it happens, it happens.
Yeah.
I think this is probably when Corin's children feel a little bit more comfortable with me and more at ease with me, and then I think it will happen on its own. I would hope.
Well, what I'm picking up here from you guys is that preparation is the key, and communication. And Jenny, as I said, I can die. I can see that you die. I can die. I can see that you're dying to jump in here. We're going to get you involved, and I really want to unpack these examples that we've discussed. I'm sure you've had lots of similar examples. Guys, so when we get back, Jenny's going to be in the hot seat, so to speak. Don't go away. We're going to be right back after this break. Welcome back. Are you in a blended parenting relationship? Do you find it hard to discipline your partner's kids from a different relationship? Or even hard to be a role model for them? Well, if so, you've come to the right place. Tonight we're sharing views on this tricky issue. Before the break, blended parenting couple Tyron and Karen shared some of the dynamics of their relationship. Now it's time to introduce an expert in the field. But before we get to Jenny, I just want to remind you guys, we've got a little bit of a twist to tonight's show. We're actually streaming live. We're actually streaming live on the internet now. You'll see a little strapline on the screen where you can go to. I mean, if you're watching the show, don't go now. But in future, every show in the future will be screened live. We've picked up some international audience. Thanks to the YouTube clips. So guys, if you have friends and family overseas, this is the first parenting show hosted by a guy. It's never been done anywhere before. Tell them to go to the link and join us there. Now, Jenny, you're a professional counselor. I'm sure you've had lots of little incidents or situations like what Tyron and Corin's spoken about. Does this sound familiar at all?
It sounds familiar, but I'm actually very impressed with both of them.
Yeah?
Yes, because I know so many families that just get in together. They haven't communicated with the children. They decided it'd be just great to move the families together, have a great time. We're going to be a happy family. And as research tells you, there is a huge amount of naivety going into a second marriage. That's the greatest problem. People think because they've been married before or in another relationship, they know all the answers, they know how to sort out the kids.
And I think typically when you go into the first relationship, well, when I say typically, presumably you're single, or not single, you don't have kids. So you get there, you have your kids, whatever, the relationship doesn't work out. And then obviously you, now in the new relationship and you bring these kids with, now you say naivety, it sounds also more than naivety, it's like selfish almost, because when you think about it, if Tyron and Corin were just interested in the two of them being together, they would say, listen babe, I want to be with you, you're the love of my life, whatever, let's move in together. And the kids must just pull in. Am I right about that? I mean,
no, absolutely. I think, you know, we all know that first relationships or marriages stay together because of kids. Unfortunately, second marriages often break up because of kids, because they haven't been factored into the equation.
So it's actually quite a serious issue.
It's a huge issue, and the main situation is the problem with the kids. And it doesn't matter what age the kids are, whether they are younger kids or teenagers, there unfortunately are probably going to be a few problems. Some of the problems faced in blended marriages would include things like the identity of a child. She, or he was an only child in a previous relationship, comes into a blended family and suddenly is a middle child or maybe an elder child. That's a huge dynamic, because that child is expected to handle themselves completely differently and to deal with the other children completely differently. Yet she's used to not sharing. She's used to having everything her own way. And that puts that child in a huge amount of trauma.
That, I mean, I haven't even thought about that, but I can see now how that could be a huge issue, because in one scenario, you're the alpha kid. I mean, you the top dog and whatever. Now suddenly you move in and you get slotted down to number 2 or 3. And depending obviously on the strength of your personality, you can cause a lot of drama for that relationship.
I think it's a lot easier when you are moving permanently into a situation like yours, where all 3 of your children are together. But when your primary residence is elsewhere and you're coming into a family where you are visiting once every 2 weeks or once every second holiday, that's incredibly difficult for the children. And the children are also caught up in divided loyalty in a way between a biological parent in a new relationship and a parent that is living elsewhere, and suddenly a stepmother, as we spoke about, or a stepfather coming into the situation. Because invariably those initial parents are the parents that that child really loves.
Yeah, invariably you say. But there are situations when the new parents might actually be better than the existing parents.
Usually it takes a while though.
Yeah, okay.
What you were saying was so true. Your relationship together is almost dictated by the children. Your moving forward as a family is dictated by your relationship with the children, how they respond to you. And they often say, like a step parent would be in a situation where they would be like almost a babysitter in the beginning. They have no right to discipline that child. And then that moves over a period of time as the child moves towards you. That moves to a case of being maybe a favourite aunt or a favourite uncle. And then eventually, as that family integrates, then you have the right to become a step parent and parent that child.
I suppose this makes it even more critical as parents. I was writing in my column, which is in the Star today and also on SAMN and Parent 24. As single parents, I'm talking about single parents or divorced parents, once you start dating again, there's normally a time before you introduce the kids, regardless of whether you're going to end up in a stable relationship with that person. But you know, as a responsible parent, you don't introduce your kids after the first date. I mean, that's just a no-no. And I think what makes this situation more traumatic is you've got to actually be as sure as possible. I mean, there's no guarantees in life before you actually make this step. So you might be madly in love with each other, and you've been dating for 3 years, and now you're thinking, okay, the natural step is for us to get together. But you can't actually do it on a whim because, as you say, Jenny, if it's a stable relationship, then all those new nuances develop. You become the aunt and you become the trusted one. But if you're going to live together now, and in 6 months' time you decide, oh no, this is not going to work, it actually creates more trauma for that
What
kid.
has that done to the child?
Not exactly.
The child has lost, let's say, a father. The father is no longer in primary residence with them.
Yeah.
A stepfather comes in, he builds up trust of this new person in his life. And as you say, 6 months' time or a year's time, suddenly that relationship is severed. That's the second person that goes out of his life.
Yeah.
And they do say that it creates huge problems with heterosexual relationships later in terms of commitment, if this still keeps on happening. And we were speaking earlier about how important commitment is in terms of your relationship.
Are you saying that would sort of rub off on the
It
child
does, definitely.
and have an impact in their relationships
In their
with
relationships
other people?
later. They find it very hard to commit because every time they have tried to commit in their youth to a relationship that was important, that has been broken.
Okay, now what is there I mean, you're a counselor, you deal with this, I'm assuming, fairly frequently, and you've seen and done it all. I mean, you've been doing this for a while. Is there a secret formula? Is there a list of do's and don'ts, or is it pretty much dependent on the dynamics of the family and the kids involved and the parents involved?
If there's a secret formula, I wish you'd tell me about it.
Well, that's why we got you on the show.
I think, as you have done, very important to bring the children in on the decisions, to prepare them.
No matter what age they are, yeah?
No matter what age
Okay,
they
great.
are. And I suppose how much information you share with them, how you share that information is dictated by whatever age they are. But certainly as young adults and as teenagers, you can share a lot of information. To take time in terms of a step-parent relationship as well as the biological relationship, to spend time with each one of those children and build individual time with them and build relationship with them is very, very important.
So you've actually got to make the effort.
You've got to make the effort. For example, with your two-step children, you've got to make the effort to actually take one at a time out, maybe for a milkshake or whatever you do with them. You build relationship with them. You would do that with your stepdaughter as well. It's very important to do that. To never rush in and start. I know that especially on the male side, often the mistake has been made within blended families, that the men rush in and want to discipline their stepchildren, and to hold back from that. Research again shows you that the biological parent should be the one that disciplines their child, not the other one. Now that's quite an eye-opener to some. They sort of think they should be there and be sharing in the discipline. You must be there on the same page in regards to deciding how you're going to discipline that child. And if you say something, you must back it up. You know, back her up in her choice of discipline. If you disagree, you don't contradict her in front of the child. You talk about it behind closed doors.
The discipline thing, for me personally, I think it's a huge challenge.
It's
I
a
mean,
huge problem.
I've raised my kids in a certain way. I've got certain beliefs in terms of discipline and whatever, you know, when it comes to corporal punishment and how you speak to the children, whatever. And I've been, in my column I was talking about it, I've been, you know, I've dated single moms who've raised their kids differently. And there were certain non-negotiables for me. And, you know, some people say I've let my children, given them too much power, because immediately if I see, you know when you are able to gel with somebody in that regard. But as you were saying now, in terms of the discipline thing, it must be very difficult to see somebody doing something wrong and knowing that, you know, this is not my call. I'm not the disciplinarian here.
It's not doing something wrong. It's doing something different. When I married my present husband, and we've now been married 20 years, we had children that were very similar age. He had a boy and a girl, and I had a boy and a girl. And my son, for example, would be corrected for something that, or punished for something that he was done, and then I would see his daughter do exactly the same thing. And in my eyes, she wasn't getting punished because he believed that punishment or the consequence of her actions came out in another way, and he would talk in depth to her, whereas maybe I, in the good old days, might rush for the bottom drawer and grab it. You know.
All right, guys, you know, time's flown by again. We can sit here for another half an hour and discuss this issue, but I think the key for me is definitely communicate and involve the kids from the beginning. I think that's the key to success from what I'm hearing from my guests. So if you are in a blended relationship, or you're thinking about going into a blended relationship or making it serious, please take note of what we've discussed and try and implement those, the advice that Jenny's given us, and also the examples that Tyron and Corin have given. However, if you need professional help, if you need to get counseling on this issue, my contact details will be up on the screen after the show. Please send me an email, get in touch with me on Twitter or Facebook, and I'll put you in touch with Jenny or my guests. Thanks for joining us tonight. We'll be back same time, same place next week. Cheers.